we want to explore how we can kind of catch our kids doing something good rather than continuing to direct and correcting them all day long. What difference would it make if we change that perspective of, rather than finding the negative things, starting to affirm for the positive and what that can do to our relationship, not only with our kids, but how can we pay it forward to other kids or other people in our lives? Welcome to Real Talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches, where we discuss all aspects of parenting using the foundation of understanding personality dynamics to raise independent, responsible, and resilient children. My name is Karen Wagner, founder of Teaching Our Youth and the Parenting Blueprint. Let's dig right in with today's topic and have some real talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches. What if, instead of directing and correcting our kids for all the things that they needed to do in a day, we started acknowledging and affirming and catching them being good? What difference would that make in our interactions with our kids? My name is Karen Wagner, founder of Teaching Our Youth and the Parenting Blueprint, and I am here with my fellow coach,
Janet Krebs.
All right. And today, in this particular episode, we want to explore how we can kind of catch our kids doing something good rather than continuing to direct and correcting them all day long. What difference would it make if we change that perspective of, rather than finding the negative things, starting to affirm for the positive and what that can do to our relationship, not only with our kids, but how can we pay it forward to other kids or other people in our lives? Janet, this is something that you've been exploring on TikTok and you've been sharing a little bit about that. So how did you kind of get caught up in this caught to being good movement?
Great question. Thank you for asking. And it's not an easy, like a one sentence answer. So I will try and be brief because it's kind of two-pronged. In my classroom days, it was kind of a thing we did in my classroom, even if it was just a little note on a desk or something. And I used to call them "caught you being goods." So it was just kind of like a classroom management, if you could call it that, just a way to check in with kids and acknowledge their good behavior. Fast forward 100 years, not really, but you understand what I'm saying. Anybody who is even on social media for 10 minutes, walking around, listening to teachers, parents, going to Starbucks, whatever it is, all we hear is Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah, 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 wah. My kid did this. My kid did that. The kids of today, the youth of today, listen to that. And I am crazed with the lack of acknowledgement. Well, let's say it another way. I'm crazed with this focus that all we hear is all the bad.
Yep.
And so this particular round of social experiments, which is what I'm kind of known for, because I like to entertain myself. This particular round of social experiments started with an eavesdropped conversation of probably a late teen or 20-something kiddo. And I don't have to tell their story right now, but it was like, a caught you being good moment.
Yes.
And it just feels like the time in this world, in this chapter in our history, where we are in the world, need a little positivity. So I am currently committed to caught you being goods for the unforeseeable future. And that's where I will leave that answer unless we come back and circle with examples.
No, I love that. I love that. And I believe that I personally, in parenting my kids, got caught up in the directing and correcting. And it really wasn't until I began to adopt that whole affirmation statements. When I talk about affirmation statements, when we look at the DISC model and what we do through the parenting blueprint, is we have a document of 20 affirming word statements based on personality. And so one of the first things that I share with parents is we need to get away from the negative and the criticism of our children and start breathing life back into them. And so one of the first strategies is to start speaking these words, noticing something positive, not necessarily about what they do, but who they are. Notice that they got a great sense of humor. You notice that when they put their mind to it, they'll get it done. Notice that they like to think things through before they make decisions. Noticing something positive about them that they feel seen and heard. If you want your kids to spend time with you, don't think that you're going to be, as soon as they come in the door, hang up your stuff, put away your books, you got your homework, pick up the towels, and unload the dishwasher, and wonder why they go to the room and they don't want to come out again. Why would they want to come out of their rooms?
I
right?
would.
So if we
I'd be hiding in my room.
I know, right? If we want to have positive relationships, then we need to notice something positive so that they feel good being around us and that they want to come out of the rooms and hang out in the kitchen with us for a little while. One of the things that I had done, because I know that self-esteem in our students can really be challenged, especially with a lot of social media. There's so much comparison. There's so many trying to one up somebody else, right? And so that can really take kids to a risky side of life. But if we are filling their buckets and noticing these positive things about them, then we can naturally, organically help them feel good about themselves. So for instance, my kids, obviously there's always stuff going on at the school. Kyle was in robotics and Anna was in the theater and, Eric was in sports. So I was always down at the school for something. But I always tried to be intentional about making a point to affirm the students, the kids at the school, on the things that I saw. They held the door open for somebody, I'd say something. If they did something in performance, I'd say something. You know what I mean? If I saw that they were working hard during a rehearsal, I'd make a comment to them afterwards, because we just need to breathe the life into them. Many times with teens, and I don't know if you've experienced this, is that they don't even give you eye contact anymore. So sometimes, you wait till you get some eye contact and then you can say something. But some kids, if their self-esteem is low, they're looking down or they don't connect with you. And even if they didn't, I'd still speak up and say something. I was outgoing enough to just say something and notice. And when I did, you could totally see their body language, their shoulders go back, their head go up, because someone actually said and affirmed or commented on something positive about them. Noticing something positive can really breathe life back into the kids.
Well,
they're
actually,
starting to feel good about who they are.
That whole posture statement that you just made reminded me, this would be a great time just to share very quickly the story about the young lady that I was inspired by first. She was the clerk in a discount retail in Florida, and I was in the dressing room and I heard her take a customer service call on the telephone, and she was eloquent. She was articulate. She was patient. She was cheerful. She was helpful. And she added so much value to a very brief conversation. And I just stopped dead in my tracks in the dressing room and just listened and smiled the entire time, gathered my things on the exit. And I looked at her and I said, I'm not being creepy, but I couldn't help but overhear your conversation with that caller. And then I reiterated all of the observations that I had made. And I said, you're just going to have to trust me when I tell you I'm a communications and leadership coach, and you've got the it factor. You will always be successful. And you don't have to remember that I'm not a part of this conversation, but just remember that some random woman overheard you in the dressing room and thought enough to stop and share this with you, because you're going to remember this moment someday, because you've got the it factor. And what I watched was, now she had lovely posture anyway, but her whole, think peacock, right? You say that whole thing, just arms back, shoulders back, chin up, heads up. And her face illuminated with joy from her toes to her nose. And she was just, why, thank you for saying so. And I said, if you knew me better, you would know that I don't share compliments freely. You got to really deserve it to get one from me, but you've got it, girl. You will always be successful. Yeah. And she was like, I said, and now I'm turning away and I'm backing away. And I'm like, have a great day. And she's like, thank you so much for saying so. And I thought, so many things to learn from that whole example, and I could have left without saying anything at all.
Right.
And I would have felt really good about what I had learned about the youth of today, quote unquote. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, here was a good example of the youth of today that everybody talks shit about, right? And now, like, here was this great example. And yet, sharing it with her, that's where the magic occurred. And it felt good for me. Like we
Yes.
all, like giving a compliment always feels as good as it, probably better than getting it.
Yes.
But that little girl, it changed her life that day.
You
I
bet.
know it did in my
Yep.
soul. I know it
Yep.
did.
Yes.
So I guess the whole moral of that is don't be afraid to just speak up and share. Like, I mean, and I've had two or three other occasions since then. And that's the mission. That's the challenge. Just keep it going. Right. I go out at least once a day and try and look for excuses to deliver, to drop a little nugget of some positivity. But that little girl's face is going to stay with me for a long time. And
It
she
really
deserves.
does make a difference. And so the challenge coming off of this episode of Kachi being good is let's pay it forward. Let's be intentional about finding positive things to say, not just to our children, but to other children or people we see on the street. Everyone is just so stressed and broken and intense on so many things. And all we really hear is the negative and the criticism. You can go to any store and people are being critical. You know, when I see people at checkout and they're just like really doing the best they can and the line is long and all this stuff, I just keep telling them, I'll even tell them, you're doing a great job today. Thank you so much. I know this has got to be hard for you with all these people in line, but you're doing a great job. Like anything. Don't be part of the problem. Let's be part of the solution. Like we can bring that level of kindness. We can bring that level of empathy and compassion. And we can also build the confidence of those around us who are not believing they have what it takes to achieve, especially our younger kids when they are continuing to be beat down and badgered by the comparison trap that comes with social media. We really need to catch them being good and notice something positive.
And I love what you said about not only for our kids, because many of us are like, that's just part of our MO because we try and be good parents and all of that. But we are the adults. And if you know my work, I'm huge into leadership as a posture. We can be the leaders for others. Mm-hmm. And I believe that it is our responsibility as an influencer to be especially mindful of those. We don't know whether the clerk at the grocery store, like you just described, we don't know their story. And I don't need to know their story because if we catch them being good at that moment, their story matters less. And being seen in that moment is more important. So I believe that we can be influencers anywhere and everywhere we go with the idea that, like, we don't know what their story is. Maybe they need to hear that today more than you could ever know.
And it may become, because I've experienced this as well, almost like a contagious thing when we're modeling this. So this is a particular strategy that we even teach the educators to teaching our youth when we do our workshops. And when the educators started noticing positive things about their students started noticing positive things about each other and about the teacher. And it just became this big old love fest. You know what I mean? Just noticing positive things or thanking them for doing things rather than being critical and tattletaling. They were just noticing positive things. Just one person at a time, we can do that. We can do that. And for those of you here who may be struggling with, you know, when I'm really in the depths and I'm really frustrated with my kids and it's really difficult to find something positive to do, put a comment here under this video, under this particular episode. And we have a document of 20 affirming word statements based on personality style. I'll give you a cheat sheet. Okay. Then once you get started with the flow of it, it'll become, this is just what you do. Sometimes we just got to just break out of the mold, be the one who's going to be the first one to say it. And next thing you know, you got a smile out of one person who now is going to say something positive to somebody else because they're feeling better because you said something positive to them. Like this can be a snowball or domino effect, you know, to just be a positive difference in this world. It has been intense the last few years. And we have got to find a way to make a difference. You know what? I think it starts with me. It starts with you. It starts with us.
I just had a really fun idea. This is so random, but like business cards have gotten so cheap now. They used to be very expensive, but now you can make them yourself if you were
Right.
somebody other than me. But they're not very expensive. Wouldn't it be so much fun to get a business card that just says something like "caught you being good" and like either leave it in the restaurant or just like, and then like a space on the back where you say, "I just really appreciated you doing, fill in the blank today," or whatever. Like that would just be such a fun little social
Yep,
experiment.
it would. And just be
Random thought.
intentional. Just be intentional that if
Yeah.
we, like you say, I go out, and when I go out, I want to be able to do that. And when I go out, I tried to do that too. I don't care if I'm going to Walmart and I see someone who's got beautiful hair, you know what I mean? Or they got gorgeous glowing eyes. I have to say something. I have to say something. And then sometimes they're just in their zone and doing their thing, but it's almost like they stop. And like you said, everything changes in their posture when you
Yeah.
said something positive. Everyone has got something negative and critical to say. Everyone's got opinion on something. Let's change that to be, let's get them doing something good and notice something positive.
That sounded like a
The challenge for the
organic
week. Go out and do your thing.
challenge. Yes, and an
Thank
organic
you for joining us for this episode. If you have not already done so, hit that subscribe button and continue to follow us. Share this with your friends because our goal is to really help become a positive influence for families, parents, and even educators, anyone working with youth, or for this particular episode, working with anybody, that we can make a difference when we start catching people doing something good and noticing the positive things. All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Hi, everybody.